So today we're going to talk about consecutive integers, and you're going to see them in word problems, okay? So first of all, what are consecutive integers? What are integers? Okay, first. You guys remember? Yeah, Dana, what are integers? Real numbers? Yeah, but they're part of real numbers. Not all real numbers are integers. Like half, right? Like pi, 3.14, then 1, 4. Yeah. Say it again. Whole real. Okay, you mean whole numbers? Yeah. Okay, whole numbers are not all. Well, all whole numbers are integers, but not all integers are whole numbers. Whole numbers are integers. Also has to include. How about? Feel that? That's correct. These are all, remember, integers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, forever, and then all the negatives as well. Remember, whole numbers do not have any negatives, right? So you can't say whole numbers. That's why they have different names. Whole numbers, integers. Whole number is part of integers, right? Does that make sense? So whole numbers are basically 0 and all the positive ones. Okay, then what about consecutive integers? What do you think? By the way, has anyone heard of consecutive before in like everyday life? Yeah, Chuck?
Like something that like in a row.
In a row, yeah, like Lakers won consecutive number of games, or Dodgers, you know what I mean? So exactly. So when we say consecutive integers, anybody want to guess what we mean by consecutive integers then? Claire, what do you think? So not quite. Aiden, maybe you could help us out.
If you mean the same integer over and over, or integers over and over?
No, it doesn't mean same integers over and over. Michael, what do you think? Go on. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Dana? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so that's actually where we're going with it. Very good. So, for example, if I have integers, let's say that integers starting with 1. Claire, give me 3 consecutive integers starting with 1. What would that be? That's exactly what we're talking about. So here, when we say consecutive integer, it doesn't mean anything hard. It just means one after the other in increasing order. So if I said, like I said before, if I want consecutive integers starting with 1, if I want 3 consecutive integers starting with 1, it'll just be 1, 2, 3. It won't be like 1, -5, 7. That's not consecutive. Consecutive means it comes one after the other. One after the other. Okay? Nothing hard. Yes, sir?
But it says an increasing order.
Right.
If it's like -1, -2, -3.
Right. Very good question. Would -1, -2, -3 be in consecutive integer order? No. If you want to say it that way, it should be -3, -2, -1. That way. Very good. So it has to be in an increasing order. Very good. Okay. Any other question? Those are good questions. Okay, let's move on then. I'll wait until you write it. Okay, so Tawar, that was a really good question. Let me see if you can answer this question then. Example 1. Sorry, 1 is missing there. 4 consecutive integers starting with -1. Can you give me these integers, Tawar?
1, 0, 1, 2.
Exactly. It'll be -1, 0, 1, 2, right? You don't want to go -1, -2. That's decreasing order. So that's really good, is what you're asking. So that's exactly what I'm asking as an example 1. If I ask you for 4 consecutive integers starting with -1, right? These are the 4 consecutive integers. Would you not agree? Okay. Now let me get a little bit more interesting than just starting with some number. How about this? Write 3 consecutive integers starting with x. So instead of just some sort of number, what if I ask you with starting with x? This is what Dana was sort of talking about before, as we were talking about this. Write this down. Think about what we mean by this. Okay, so does anybody see how we could do this one here? Oh, how about Eunice? Exactly right. You start with x. You keep adding 1 to it, right? Isn't that how you get consecutive numbers? Like, you can start with negative numbers or positive. Doesn't matter. You keep adding 1 to it, right? 1 to 1 before it. So x, you add x plus 1, you get the second number. And how do I get x plus 2? What is x plus 1? The previous one, what? Plus 1 again, right? Isn't that how we get x plus 2? Does that make sense? So that's pretty simple. So if I'm talking about, so on your homework tonight, on these word problems, if they're talking about these consecutive integers, and if there's 3 of them, this is how you would declare a variable. You guys remember? So like I said, you would say let x to be the first number, right? Then what? X plus 1 to be the second consecutive integer, and x plus 2 will be the third. So we want to do them in order. Third consecutive integer. Yeah, question?
Why isn't it just x, comma 2x, or 2x and 3x?
Good question. Why isn't it x and 2x and 3x? That's a good question. Carly? That's multiplying. So let's, yeah, when you multiply, you don't get consecutive number. Think about it. Like if it's x, 2x, you get, if x is 1, it kind of works, right? But what if x is 2? You get 2, 4, and then 6. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, okay. Yeah.
Isn't that like with even, even
Not quite.
2, 4, 6, 8?
Yeah, but you don't do it that way. Because what if you start with 7? You get 7, 14, and yeah, so you don't get, they don't always become, right? 7, 14, and 21, they're not always going to be consecutive, even, or odd. So that's not how you do it. We're actually going to talk about that. Very good. So please don't think that that's how we use it, that's what we use for even or something like that, okay? All right, let's move on. Okay, sometimes, time to time, you get something like this. Write the integer that immediately precedes x. What does it mean, something precede? 2 people know? 3? Samuel, what's it mean to precede something? Huh? Yeah, something that comes before. So, if they're talking about a number that immediately precedes x, because there are a whole bunch of numbers that comes before x, right? What about the one right before x? But it's an integer. Anybody know what we could do to represent this number that precedes the x? Patty, what do you think? X plus negative 1 is exactly right. And I just wrote x minus 1. Is that okay? Very good. And good. I like addition, so you wrote x plus negative 1. So one, you know, like for example, x is 5. What integer comes right before 5, guys? 5? 4. So how do you get 4? You subtract 1 from it, right? So that's kind of nice. With these consecutive integers, you just have to either add 1 to it, and if you want before the one that you're talking about, you just subtract 1. Is that okay? Any question? All right, let's move on. So here's example 4. Now we're ready to do some actual word problem. Okay, this one actually is not quite, because they don't ask you to solve yet, but that's okay. It just says, write an equation that states that the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 24. So write that down. And as you write it down, think about how many unknowns we have and how we're going to declare our variable and so forth. Okay, so I'll wait. Go ahead and write it down. Alright, how many people think they know how many unknowns this word problem has? Show me with your fingers. How many unknowns does it have? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about, I want 100% participation here. What do you think? With your finger, show me. 2, 1. Okay, some people think, most of you think it's 3. You guys are correct. Some of you had 2. Okay, there are 3 because it says what? They want 3 consecutive integers. We don't know what they are. But kind of interesting. If you know the first one, do you know all the rest?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you know the first one, right? But we don't know for now what those 3 numbers are, right? So anybody know what we could do here? Mimi, what should we do to declare our first one? What is our first unknown, Mimi? X. So we're gonna say let x to be what? We have to be kind of specific. Can you just do let x be the number or something? No. What should we say? Let x be the first. Exactly right. Let x be the first consecutive integer. You could abbreviate them if you want. Okay. Oh, you have an idea what to do? Hold on. Okay. So good. Very good. Okay. So let x to be our first consecutive integer. Then Chuck thinks he knows what to do. What do we do for the second one?
I just got the answer.
Oh, you know the answer for this? Okay, sort of. Okay, good. We're not looking for that yet. But Chuck, what do we need to then declare our second unknown as? What should we write?
X plus 1.
x plus 1 to be my, which one? Second consecutive integer, right? Does that make sense? Is it frozen? There you are. Okay, then what about Sammy? What about our last first consecutive integer? What should we write? If x is our first consecutive integer, and x plus 1 is our second, and what? What's our last one? X plus 2 is your what? Third consecutive integers. Isn't that right? Does that make sense? Okay, so there you are. So those are the unknowns. We have declared our unknowns. How many variables do we need to use?
3.
We get to use 3 variables during first semester?
1.
One. Okay, we use 1 variable to represent all 3 unknowns. I guess that's what you meant. Okay. Are we okay with this? Any questions so far? So this is how you declare your variables, as we talked about this many times. And you have to be really specific. Don't just write x equals the first number. These are consecutive integers, right? So you have to write, because that's why we get the second as x plus 1 and x plus 2. All right, now that's our step 2. Step 3 then is to write our equation. And Paige, what sort of formula do we need? Because to come up with an equation, we need a formula. Although this formula is kind of sort of simple. Oh, you want the answer? Okay, go ahead. Give me the answer. What do you think?
X plus, in parentheses, x plus 1 plus parentheses, x plus 2 equals 24.
Yeah, it equals 24. You add them all up together, that equals 24. So what formula do we use to find the sum of a number? Yeah? Yeah, basically you add the first number plus second number plus third number, that gives you the sum. Is that too simple? Yeah? So how many people see that this is the equation that we need? You add the first number, right? Plus the second number plus the third number gives you 24. Do you guys get that? Any question? Do you think it's a good idea to put parentheses around the second number and the third number this way? Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Why? Claire, why would that be a good idea to put the parentheses around these things? You add them up first if you know what the x is, yeah? And also, later, when you get into the other sort of interesting problems, they're going to not just going to add 3 of them together, they're going to like maybe multiply or do something else stuff, some other stuff onto these numbers. So it's a good idea to sort of group them, because we're adding the first number plus second plus third. Does that make sense? And of course, what's in front of these parentheses? There is an invisible 1, so when you distribute it, actually does become same as just without the parentheses. But it's a good idea. And this is all they want you to do. So some parts of your homework, that's all they want you to do. They don't ask you to actually solve. Chuck thinks that he knows the answer. What's the answer, Chuck? 7 plus 8 plus 9. Does that give you 24? Yeah. Okay, good. Some of them you could. So later they're gonna ask you to solve also. Any question? Good. Then may I move on? So on your homework tonight, they're not just going to give you consecutive numbers. They're going to be talking about consecutive even integers. Can somebody tell me what they look like, consecutive even integers? Who could list them for us? How about Royce? Oh no, as an actual number, not using variables. Just give me 2, 4, 6, 8, so forth. Are those only ones that we could have as consecutive integers? Not quite. Who can I ask? Somebody that didn't. Spencer, what do you think? -2, -4. Are they evens? Yeah, just because they're even doesn't mean that they cannot be negative. They could also be negative. What about 0? Do we include 0 as even? How many people say yes? Raise your hand. How many say no? 0 is not an even number. Turns out 0 is an even number. So I even wrote that down. So when we're talking about consecutive even numbers, these are the numbers we're talking about. All the positive evens and then all the negative, including 0. So -6, -4, -2, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so forth. Okay? If I could talk about even, guess what we're going to talk about next?
Odds.
That's right. Somebody list for me the consecutive odd integers. Okay, how about Patty?
1, 3, 5, 7.
Sure, if we could keep going, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, right, 11, so forth. What about Chris? Could we add negatives also? You sure? You're correct. So we could actually add. So don't forget the negatives. So it's kind of interesting. Whenever we talk about evens and odd integers, people only think about positive, right? Numbers. They don't have to be positive. They could be negative and be even or odd. Okay? Do you guys see any similarities between consecutive and even? Consecutive even and odd integers? Do you guys see something that's similar in both of them? See any similarity between them? One person's here, 2, 3, 4. I want you to discuss with your group. 5. Okay, go ahead. Think about it. Do you guys see any something that's similar between these? Go ahead. I'll wait. How many people think they see the similarity here? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, more than before. Good. How about then? I want to ask Bella. What do you see?
If you add 2,
Yeah, exactly. Kevin, did you want to? Is that what you were going to say too? What were you going to say?
That if you add a fraction by 2, you get 3.
Very good. Even though Dana, did you want to add something?
I guess
If you multiply by 2?
like if you multiply 2 of them together, it's the same.
Oh, if you multiply 2 of them together, really? What about 2 times 4? You don't get 6 though. I mean, do you mean if you multiply 2 of them, they're still even?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, good. Okay, so if you multiply 2, does it work for odd? If you multiply any 2 odds, is this still odd? Good, okay, that's good, very good. But what I wanted you to mainly see was, you're right, they differ by 2, don't they? Right? Even if they're even or odd, right? You start with any even number, you keep adding 2 to get 2 to that number, you keep on getting not just any even, but consecutive even numbers, don't you? Right? Like start with -4. What do you get when you add -4 plus 2? -2. Isn't that the consecutive even number you get? What about -2 plus 2? 0. 0 plus 2? 2. As you keep adding 2, don't you get that next number, consecutive even number? It also works for the odd. What's -5 plus 2, guys? -3. What's -3 plus 2? -1. What's -1 plus 2? 1, 3, keep going. Do you guys see the pattern? Isn't that interesting? So for consecutive even and odd, all you have to do is, if you know the first number, you keep adding 2 to it. Okay, then you get the next number. Okay, good. Knowing this, let's see whether we could do the second example. Next example. I would like you to all try this yourself. Write the next 3 consecutive even integers starting with x. Go ahead, everybody try. I'll give you the first one for you since I'm so nice. Let x to be what, guys? Anyone?
Let x equal the first consecutive.
First consecutive, what kind of integer?
Even.
Very good. Go ahead. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you the first one. You give me the rest. Okay, go ahead. I'll wait. Okay, a lot of you guys got this. Let x to be the first consecutive even integer. Who can tell me the second one here? How about Brandon?
X plus 2.
Right. So tell me what to write. I don't want to just write x plus 2, right? Then what? Then
Then x plus 2 equals second.
you got it. Then x plus 2 is our second consecutive even integer. Then Dakota, can you tell me the last one? You got it. Then n, since it's the last unknown, I wrote n. And x plus 4 is the third consecutive even integer. Easy. Okay, do another one. Very similar to this one. Hold on. Tawar, you had a question. What's your question again?
So if like x is like 3, then
Right. If x is 3, then we don't get consecutive even integers, do we? If we get 3, 5, and 7. But what's x? Yeah, but it says if we know it's gonna have to be what? Consecutive even integer. Not 3 isn't even. So if you get your answer as 3, then that's problem doesn't have, you did something wrong, or there's no solution. Does that make sense? We're assuming that x is an even integer. That's why. Does that make sense? So x can't be 3. We want x to be even.
yeah.
So once it's even, do you see how it's going to be always going to be even if you keep adding 2 to that. Does that answer your question? Very good. Okay, then let's do the second one here. Here's our example 6. Write the next 3 consecutive odd integers starting with x. Go ahead, everybody try. All right. Hey, Matthew, what did you do for your first one? Exactly. Let x to be the first odd consecutive integer. Consecutive odd integer. Then what's our second one? Samuel Lee, what do you think, sir? X plus 2 to be the second consecutive odd integer. And lastly, what do we write for Lindsay for the last one? X plus 4 to be the third consecutive odd integers. Right? Anybody say anything interesting? Michael, what do you see? What do you observe? Oh, to get odd integers, you have to add 2, which is even number. Okay. Anything else that's interesting? Very good. How about Camilla? Odds and the evens are the same exact way. Look at the one we did for the consecutive even integers, and look at the ones that we did for the consecutive odd. Right? Tawar, you asked this question. So why are they same? How come? You know, only thing difference is we say, you know, for the even one we say consecutive even. For this one we consecutive odd, but they're all exactly the same. How come?
We start with the odd number.
Exactly. When you start with the odd number, look, we're letting x to be the first odd integer, right? So if you're starting with odd, you keep adding 2 to it, it's always going to be odd. Does that make sense? Whereas the other one, even though we declared the same way, the x that we get better be an even number if you're talking about even numbers, right? The first number must be an even, therefore you keep adding 2 to it, you get even. Do you guys see that? So I'm going to summarize this for you. Write this down. This is important. N, comma, n plus 2, comma, n plus 4 represents consecutive even integers if n is even, and consecutive odd integers if n is odd. In other words, it depends on the very starting number, right? If the starting number is even, it's going to keep on becoming even. If it's odd, right? So we use the same exact way to declare the evens and odd, consecutive evens and odd. Okay, so please note that this is true. Some people think that they have to do something different for even and odds. No. Okay. Like Michael says, right? Even if it's odd, why do we keep adding even? Shouldn't you be adding odd? No, it doesn't work that way, does it? Okay, very good. Okay. All right, then let's do an actual problem here. This is actually this sort of question is in your homework. It says the product of 2 consecutive odd integers is 99. Find the integers. And they put something. They give you something like this. Domain equals to 3, 9, and 17. Can somebody guess what they mean by domain? What do they give you? Yeah. Yeah, they're asking. It's kind of like a multiple choice. They're saying, okay, the answer is going to be either 3, 9, and 17. Okay. Does that make sense? And because we don't know how to solve this equation, they give you like a choice for us to actually plug it in and check. Does that make sense? Well, it'll make sense as we do more if you're not quite. If you don't get it 100%. So, just don't worry about the domain part yet. Just look at it this way. Okay, so it's a word problem, nevertheless. Okay, and so step 1 is of course read it and think about how many unknowns there are. Go ahead and write it down. And as you write this down, think about how many unknowns you have. Show me with your fingers how many unknowns you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, some of you are still writing. Sorry. Go ahead and write. After you write. Good. Everybody sees that they are? Everybody say what? How many?
2.
There are 2 unknowns. Okay. So give me, Eugene, what are the 2 unknowns here? X and x plus 2 is exactly right. So we're going to say let x to be what class? Let x to be? I use D. Is that okay? I just happen to use D. By the way, the reason I use D is because I use D for odd. And you may say, well, why didn't you use O for odd? It's because, yeah, you don't want to use O. That's not a good choice. So I use D, the letter next to it. So let D be what? What do we write, Eugene?
The first consecutive odd integer.
Exactly right. Can I just write the first consecutive integer?
No.
No, then you get it wrong. Because we're talking about all odds right now, okay? So you have to be specific. Remember I told you this is important. Mimi, tell me what to write for my second unknown. Let it. Exactly, let D plus 2. Should I do D plus 1? No, what would D plus 1 give you? Just the consecutive integers, not the odd ones, right? So Kevin, what do I write? Let d plus 2 equal to?
Second consecutive odd integer.
You got it. Okay. Does that make sense? All right. Who haven't I called? I haven't called Angel. What sort of formula do I need here? Because every time you come up with an equation, even though it's very simple or silly, what sort of formula do you need for this question, do you think? It says the product of two consecutive odd integers is 99. Is it easier for me to give you, can you give me the equation? Is that easy? Yeah? No? Oh, I'll give you time. I want you to think about what formula we need. Oh, you know the formula? What formula?
I don't D plus
Not quite. Okay, so I'm going to give you time. Think about which formula we need to use so that we get, which formula we need to use so that we could get an equation. Go ahead, I'll give you time. Talk to your group now. Go ahead. Who can tell us? Okay, so maybe this is so simple. Yeah, two people, that's it? 4 people are the only ones that know how to come up with the formula for this? Oh, okay, a lot more. How about somebody that I haven't picked? Who haven't I picked today? Oh, hold on, I see. Mike, no, not Mike. Joseph, what do you think, sir? Oh, that's the equation. So what formula did you use? You're right, that's the right equation. The formula is basically first number times second equals to the product. Maybe it was so obvious you guys didn't even think of it, okay? But okay, that's the formula. Isn't that how you find the product of two numbers? You add it, multiply them together. And you're right, Joseph said it correctly. It is d times d plus 2 equals to 99. Okay? And we don't know how to solve this equation, okay? So guess what? That's why they gave us the domain, right? They gave us the choices to choose from. So what was the choice they gave us? Yeah. 9. What was the choice they gave us? What were the 3 choices they gave us? 3, 9, and 17. Okay? And you say the answer is 9, you are correct. So how do you know it's 9, guys? You plug it in. Does 3 work? No, that's too small. What about 17? Does that work? No. So you just plug it in. So 9 works, doesn't it? What's 9 plus 2? 9 plus 2? 11. So what's 9 times 11? 99. See, it checks. That's the only one that works. Does that make sense? So that's why, because we don't know how to solve this equation, turns out this equation is quadratic. We don't know how to solve it yet. So that's why they gave us 3 choices. This is how it's going to be for your homework tonight. Does that make sense? So you have to just, it's like a multiple choice. You just, at the end, plug in which one works. Are we good? Yes, sir.
For homework, like, they give us 3 choices to like just show the one that works.
Yeah, if you could see right away which one works, that's fine. You don't have to choose, you don't have to plug in everything and then, you know what I mean? Yeah, if you could see right away, that's fine. Oh, by the way, so far we've only talked about up to step 3, right? For these word problems. Turns out to do these word problems, you need, anybody know how many steps you need? To finish the word problem? Yeah, 5 is correct. So step 1 was to, right, read the problem and then, figure out what the unknowns are. Step 2 is to declare. Step 3 is to write an equation. Guess what step 4 is? Sort of obvious. Anybody see what step 4 might be? We just did it. Yeah. Solving. Of course, if you have an equation, you solve. But right now, we don't know how to solve yet. So this time, we sort of plugged in. But if you know how to solve, you solve. And then, anybody know what step 5 is? Chris? Yes. Write the answer as a sentence. And if you have time, you check. Okay, so what would step 5 be for this one? How would I write this as a sentence? Look at the question. They asked us for the product of the 2 consecutive odd integers is 99. Find the integer. So what should you write as your solution? As your answer as in a sentence? What would you write? Anybody? By the way, what are the answers? 9 and what? What are the integers? 9 and 11. How do we get 11? 9 plus 2. Isn't that how we declare our second number, right? If d is the first number, second number is just consecutive odd, so it's got to be 12. Are they both odd? Yeah. So how do I write? Do I just write 9 and 11? Is that it? No. Carly, what do you think I should write? As a sentence. I don't want to just write 9 and 11. You have to write as a sentence.
The integers are 9.
Exactly. The integers that we're talking about are 9 and 11. If you want to be more specific, you could say the consecutive odd integers are 9 and 11. That'll be fine too. And could we check this real quickly? We could actually check in our heads too, right? What's 9 times 11, class? 99. It works out, doesn't it? Good check. 9 times 11 is 99. Any question? Is this easy? Okay. Very good. Any question? No? Can you do something like this for your homework tonight? Okay. Do you know how to declare a variable for consecutive odds and consecutive evens and consecutive numbers? Guys, I cannot tell you how many times, right, Chris, on the test, people only see consecutive integers, even though it says consecutive odd. Do you think that's going to make big difference? Yeah, please read carefully. Okay, they may say consecutive, not just integers, but consecutive odds or consecutive evens. Okay, so it's different when you have those. Okay, are we good? All right.